Hi, this is Jason LeDuc from LeDuc Leadership, and you're listening to the Pursue Vegas podcast.
The idea of Pursue Vegas was to really highlight the local people that really make Vegas, Vegas.
I love that aspect of how these visionaries are actually bringing people together.
When we hit record, our responsibility is to connect the people of our city so we can show the world who we really are. All right. Welcome to the Pursue Vegas podcast. I'm your host, Dave Berlin.
And I'm your co-host, Tanya Nguyen.
And we are excited, but I'm a little confused and discombobulated today because when you have three people on the same podcast who used to have other podcasts or currently do have other podcasts, you get mixed up in your intros and you totally...
Are you having an identity crisis right now?
It's a little bit of an identity crisis.
I don't see what could possibly go wrong.
Well, welcome to your intervention, Dave Berlin.
No, man.
Jason, thank you for being here.
Are we doing another intervention on Dave?
Yes, we are.
I feel like
Sounds like we are.
I feel like we just did this over the weekend.
Yeah.
I was going to text you, but I wanted it to be a surprise.
Yeah, all of a sudden.
All the best interventions are.
Hang on. That would be the greatest show in the world. Is if people did podcasts as an intervention. Hey, we want to have you come in the studio and have this.
So, Dave, we really have to talk about your issues.
But only if it's an intervention for you every time,
right.
And you fall for it every time.
Which I
so good.
see that being a Dave move.
All right, intervention.
Dude, we're gonna do a podcast today. Is this
welcome back to the intervention of Dave Berlin today.
We just did one. Why would we need to do another intervention on you?
You're right. Let's do the podcast, and then people start walking in.
Dave, we need to talk about all these businesses you're starting all the time.
Yeah. As entrepreneurs, I promise, I will not start another business today.
Is this the worst?
Thank you for taking.
This podcast?
No, this is actually
the best intro.
This is the best intro. No, I'm. On a more serious note, no, definitely glad to have you here. It's long overdue. You came by for the launch party that we had,
I did.
But you and I have been doing some serious mobile broadcast stuff across multiple events for quite some time now. You have so many things that you're passionate about. I love having veteran entrepreneurs on the show, but also we do a lot of stuff with vets in tech. There's just so much synergy, so much synchronicity of what we're all trying to work towards and build in the ecosystem here in Vegas. And that's why it's very important that you're here. So please tell us all things Jason, and what are you excited about?
Well, thanks for having me. And I agree. The synergies are what make it fantastic. And that was, to be honest, the first few years I was in business, I didn't have that until I got kind of reestablished with the veterans community. When I left active duty from the Air Force in 2015, I kind of said, I want a little break from all of this. And when I started getting back involved in the veterans community and deeper into the entrepreneur community, I found these are my people, and this is where all of our interests are aligning. And it's so much better when you find people whose interests are aligned with yours. Mm-hmm. And you can start collaborating on working things together just because you think they're cool things to do, as opposed to I got to find a strategic partner and I gotta go find clients and I gotta go find vendors and I gotta when you find people who are interested in the things you're interested in. And my big thing is after 20 years in the Air Force, I'm really interested in leadership, and not just leadership in business, not just leadership in the military, but leadership in our communities. And we do a great job training people for leadership in the military. We don't always realize it when we're getting trained at the time, and I'm trying to bring some of that culture out here where we're always talking and thinking about leadership in all our discussions that we're having, so that we are building our communities and building our leadership in our communities. We build the leadership, the rest of it will come. So.
No.
You and I have that in common, is the leadership aspects, both from an organizational perspective and secondly from an interpersonal perspective. I always have like a street angle because that's what we like to joke. It's like the hood raised me, the streets raised me, but how do you actually apply leadership into an organization level on a culture within how we run our businesses and how we talk to each other and how we kind of lead by example in this town, with a lot of people that are just mainly talks, but no one really steps up, especially something that you said previously. Everyone wants to be the first in this town. No, nobody wants to be first in this town, but everybody wants to be next. And that's something that has sat with me since, I don't know, 10 minutes before the show. I know we're not going to discuss the specifics of it, but I think I love that topic of leaning into what this town is really made of on the leadership side.
Yeah, and to be fair, I stole that from Dave.
Yeah.
He said that many, many times, and it finally stuck in my brain. But I think you're right. And, you know, so there is, like many things that are arts and sciences like leadership is, there's the theory, and then there's the practice, right? There's the lofty goals, and then there's the practical. And I'm interested in how do we use the practical to achieve our lofty goals, and that's a lot of what we do at the the frontline level in the military is that practical day-to-day leadership. But that's only good if you have a strategic understanding of the big picture. And I think one of the things that happens in this community is we don't have a lot of practical leadership experience. And we often have competing interests for the strategic level. We don't have everyone, all the stakeholders on the same page for what do we want this community to be. And that's not unique to Vegas, but there are communities that do that very well, that say, what's the big picture now? How do we all go off and do our own thing contributing to the big picture?
Yeah. Even though this is the Pursue Vegas podcast, I look at the very specific example of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, while they have really transformed in the last 6 to 8 years, I remember 20 years ago, they had the Vision 2025 project, which is hilarious because here we are, it's 2025. It is not exactly what that vision was, but it's well beyond in some areas because there's technologies that we couldn't have like predicted or planned for. But the idea is that we're going to do something. Let's all go together. And I think it can be challenging in communities like Las Vegas because you do have transients that come in from different places. One of the other challenges that we have sometimes is we have charlatans that come in and mix things up and create more challenges where there should be collaboration. So what I love about you too is like we've had so many different people on the show from different experience, but also different times in Las Vegas. Set the stage. When did you get here? Because you left and came back.
Yeah, I've been in and out for 20 years. So as a child, let's go way back. As a child growing up in the 1980s, I grew up on the East Coast. So I had never been to the West Coast. I was fully 19 years old, 18 or 19 years old, I think, by the first time I came to the West Coast. But as a child growing up in Connecticut, which is a place that is not very much like Las Vegas, it's very, very beautiful, very quiet, very boring. But I was fascinated with Las Vegas. So, and in the 80s, there was this thing where TV shows like The A-Team, or Who's the Boss, or Full House, they would go to Las Vegas, right? And I was always fascinated by this place, Las Vegas, with the lights and the sounds and the slot machines, the gambling and the shows and the magic. And just as a small child, like under 10 years old, I was always fascinated by this place. Then as I got older and got more into science and engineering and getting ready to go into the Air Force and focusing on that, I didn't think about Las Vegas that much. And then when I was graduating college, got my first assignment in the Air Force, getting commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Air Force. My first assignment was Edwards Air Force Base in California, which is just down the road from here. If you're not familiar, Edwards Air Force Base is where they do a lot of the basically the flight testing of the Air Force that they don't do here or at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. They do at Edwards Air Force Base. And it's really the early stages of flight testing for everything. Like the first flights of a lot of Air Force stuff is at Edwards. It's where in the old days they used to land the space shuttle in the beginning, and then when they couldn't land it in Florida, it's where they would land the space shuttle. I got to see that land when I was stationed at Edwards. That was cool. But all that said, when I was driving from Connecticut or from Boston because that's where I went to college, when I was driving from there, when I was planning my route to drive out to Edwards, I saw that it took me right through Las Vegas. And all of that came back to me. All of that fascination with Las Vegas. And Las Vegas now is very different from Las Vegas in the mid-1990s. Las Vegas in the mid-1990s was very much the $2.99 shrimp cocktail, the $4.99 prime rib and lobster. We were using the shows and the buffets and all of that. as lead magnets and things to keep people in the casinos, to keep them gambling, as opposed to amenities that are actually drawing people to the city now, and the gambling is almost secondary, right? So very different time. But I said, I get to stay in Las Vegas. I get to see Las Vegas. So I planned my route. Edwards is only 3 hours down the road. I planned my route so I would get here at like 10 in the morning one day, and I would spend a night in Las Vegas before I went on to Edwards the next day. So I spent all day. I went to Hoover Dam, checked out a couple of casinos, and this was the mid-90s. So like Luxor was brand new. Luxor was maybe not even a year old. So it was this, and it's not like today where we have all these tall buildings. Luxor was probably the biggest thing you could see for miles and miles around. It was this giant black pyramid.
It was the Allegiant. It was the Allegiant Stadium.
It was. It kind of was. Like remember how that looked on the skyline and was so unique. That's what that was back then. And so I checked out all these casinos. It was like, this is amazing. So when I was stationed in California, I would come back almost every other month for a weekend in Las Vegas. And it was a different time, right? You could show up with $200 in your pocket cash, go through, do all your gambling, eat, drink, whatever you're going to do. And, you know, if you weren't lucky, you left with enough money in your pocket for gas, and you got gas on the way out of town and drove back home. And if you were lucky, maybe you had $200 or more when you left town. So it was a very different place. Still fun town. I still love living here. I still don't want to live anywhere else. But that was my first experiences with Las Vegas, and then went off and did a couple more Air Force assignments and got the opportunity to have an assignment here doing flight testing. And so I was here for 5 years doing flight testing on really important stuff. So did that, went on to do some other assignments. I had bought a house here, didn't never really plan on coming back. And then when I started thinking about getting out of the Air Force 7 or 8 years later, still had my house here, started thinking about starting a business, said, why don't I just go back to Las Vegas? And that was 2015, and I've been here ever since.
Love it. I love it. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and you have the different spectrum, because there's a lot of military people that do end up retiring here or getting out and coming here because there's a lot of different opportunities. And of course, we're also in the path now, here we are, 2025, trying to create some of those opportunities with some of the philanthropy and the work that we do with Vets in Tech. But all of that also plays into the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, the overall entrepreneurship ecosystem. But you're also in that niche of leadership. And how do you take the corporate leadership models that are out there, and how do you implement some of those practices, which has become very common, more common in the last 10 years. People understand how the military leadership can cross over into that world. I think one piece that's different about military leadership is the leadership is the highest level, because we always are also factoring the bonus. I say bonus level. The highest level of leadership is leadership during conflict and war. That's a totally different gear that most companies will never have to take, but because we do have that throttle that is capable, we're chaos capable. And when I say that, it's like the best leadership really comes at like the highest decision-making things come when lives are at stake. And sometimes it's harder for companies to really, one, embrace that, because they have stigmas about what they think veteran leadership is. But like, there is value that people can get from that. What do you think? What do you think the biggest challenges are for corporate entities to understand that? And what do you think the solution might be?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think the idea, because I've talked to my own clients and other folks about this, the idea of stakes in leadership, it's very ingrained in us in the military. Putting together a team to clean up the parking lot because the general's coming to visit is low stakes. Putting together a team to go capture some bad guys and make sure they come to justice is much higher stakes, right? So we kind of, and like a lot of things in the military, this is ingrained in us. It actually is very hard for a lot of military people to explain the leadership principles involved, because when you went to basic training in the Marine Corps, I went to officer training in the Air Force. So you do all these things, right? You're getting taught leadership from the moment you show up. You've got the yellow footprints, right? You've got in the Air Force, we have to stand like exactly toes on the line and report in, right? You have to fold your socks a certain way. You have to roll your socks a certain way. You have to make your bed a certain way. We're we're not doing these things because we like torturing people and we just like to see beds made a certain way or socks folded a certain way, all right? We're teaching you attention to detail. We're teaching you to look out for each other, your squad mates, your platoon mates, your flight mates. We're teaching you to look out for each other and say, hey, your socks aren't quite right. Let me show you how to do that the right way, and then we'll make sure you know how to do it right.
Don't get in trouble.
So we right for us at 18 or 19 years old, it's so we don't get in trouble. For our folks who are instructing us, is they're starting to come together as a team.
Yeah.
They're working together. They're understanding attention to detail is important. No one cares how your socks are folded.
Yeah.
No one cares in basic training, right? Yeah. Now, sometimes you get into a combat situation and how your ruck is set up matters, right? Because someone may need to grab something off of your ruck and it better be in the place it is. Still attention to detail, right? Yeah. We've built that skill in you from literally day zero of you arriving at training.
Yeah.
And so it can be hard for military folks to explain military leadership principles. And that one of stakes, to go all the way back to that, a really long way around to that, is one we all innately understand. This is a bigger deal than that. But we still always do things in an excellent way, and we do things that are appropriate to the stakes.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. You nailed it. And it's funny because you did go to officer training school for the Air Force. I was enlisted for the Marine Corps, two totally different places. It's not like, hey, we're going to get in trouble. It's like, I think they're going to hit us if we don't have our socks the right way. But that creates a different level of camaraderie. It creates different opportunities and modalities for communication. And I think what's interesting for companies is that if you can understand what's capable for people to work together at the highest level, then companies, organization, teams within those organizations are going to operate at a higher level. Is there an example where you've seen that in the work that you've done with companies, or just like one that's a general one that people might not realize?
I'm trying to think of a specific example, but what we're getting at here is that if you want your team to perform at the highest level, you need to start doing some of these culture things on day one, right? You need to have your company's equivalent of folding the socks, right? If attention to detail is important to you in your company, you need to have the equivalent of folding socks in your company. I'm trying to think of a good example we've ever come up with a client of.
In a simple version,
SOPs, baby.
Yeah, SOPs. I was going to say it starts with like a pre-flight checklist, right? Yep. There's a whole list of things that needs to happen to create a certain result, or that result then starts to become a habit, and that habit starts to form the culture.
And it's starting to work in your company when the folks on the front line are given a new task and they say, why isn't there a checklist for this?
Yeah.
And you really know it's working when they go, I'm going to create a checklist for this.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you know it's really working, when they go, there should be a checklist for this, and I'm not going to ask anybody for it. I'm just going to create it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think on that side, if you're talking to leaders that can lead themselves, it is a different story with being able to take SOPs and run with it and get creative with it and actually be resilient enough to push through. But I want to ask you something. For me, leadership always starts from within, and it starts with one, right? So what makes Jason an effective leader?
It's going to sound like a hokey core values thing, but integrity, accountability, doing things in an excellent way according to the stakes, right? Because sometimes good enough is good enough. And then communicating and understanding other people, right? So always that integrity. What is our purpose here? What is it we are here to do? And is everything we're doing contributing to that, right? Integrity is not just telling the truth, right? Integrity is being honest with ourselves and saying, is what we're doing here worthwhile? Is it contributing to the bigger picture we all agree that we are contributing to? If that's not the bigger picture we want to be contributing to anymore, let's have an honest conversation about that. So it all does start with integrity. It all does start internally. And then, you get into the excellence pieces. You get to, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well. Yes, we are limited on resources. Yes, we are limited on time, but I'm going to do it well. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, right? And again, sometimes good enough is good enough, but the wisdom is knowing the difference, right? Yeah. The wisdom is, and that just comes with time and experience of, okay, this is good enough for today, guys. Let's move on. We've got the immediate problem solved. We need to have a conversation about the longer term later. Yeah. And then that communicating, and that was that was one of the things as you grow from being a young officer to being a senior officer, or a young leader to being a senior leader, you really do need to be spending more of your time communicating, listening and watching to what's going on, and then communicating to folks not how to do things, why we're doing them, and what the point is, what's that bigger picture, right? If you want to grow leaders, you want them to have that internal drive for integrity and excellence, and you want to start communicating them and growing them of, let's have a conversation about the big picture.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, because the reason I asked that is, for me, leadership speaks differently on how other people view leadership, especially coming from being a woman. For me, introspection is the best time you have for self-reflection and building self-awareness, because if you cannot clearly communicate, and I think a lot of businesses, owners, entrepreneurs, community leaders that call themselves leaders lack the ability to think clearly and then communicate clearly. So I just wanted to understand that us at this table understand and have a definitive understanding of what leadership really is. It's not just somebody barking orders and painting a big picture with, this is how we're going to get there, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, versus the person that's just doing the thing that's X, Y, Z, and then shifting the focus away from, let me tell you what to do. And then leadership to me is empowering the people that they're leading to do, like, to be the best version of what they can, be, and providing them a safe space to have the capabilities of making their own decisions, being creative, being resourceful, without just kind of like pulling them along, because I think that's a managerial line of work rather than like a leadership position. So it's fantastic that those are the core values that we seem to have at this table.
Yeah. I take a really interesting approach when it comes to leadership. And this was there's been multiple lessons learned. And then there was one critical aha for me. And to me, leadership is about fear. It's about fear. And it's not like, will I make the right decisions in the face of fear, adversity? This isn't a battlefield thing. I've never been to combat. I've been in situations of conflict, but I've also been in multiple leadership roles where I've built large teams and large organizations. And there was an aha that I had, and it was actually in the setting of growing the DJ business in the Midwest. In the world of DJing weddings, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Somebody comes and requests Cotton Eye Joe.
That's the second worst thing. I love that.
And now I can't unhear it.
Yeah, you can't unhear it.
Son of a bitch.
No, the worst thing. The worst thing is.
I really hope you guys can like play that under the next
100%.
The next 2 minutes
That's
of the
brilliant.
podcast.
Yeah. Where did you come from? Where did you go? No, the worst thing that can happen. The worst thing that can happen is we can ruin somebody's wedding. And there's so many ways that you can ruin somebody's wedding. But then if you really take that to the next level, it's like then that starts what could be a unhealthy relationship that they never get past because it's something that they stay stuck on, and it creates problems at the very beginning foundation of a relationship, and over time we have another statistic. So I remember when I took the responsibility of that event, my fear was what made me do the best job I could possibly do. Now, yes, it came from the experience of the military. It came from the experience of really good training that company I went to work for had already been in business for 10 years. They had already figured out what a great wedding was and how to avoid that. But for me to learn that skill, that's easy. When it really came to leadership, because I helped build a whole office in Dallas, Kansas City, Denver, Indianapolis, when I say leadership is about fear, it's about passing on that fear to the next generation so they lead with the same integrity. It comes back to that integrity that you have. And sometimes you can tell people what leadership is, but it's really once you pass on that fear and they have the same fear that you have, that it's their willingness to do a great job is what outweighs that fear.
Yeah, I don't look at that as fear, and I think that may be that may get you a different result than you're getting for. But I do like the idea of looking at the responsibility, right? It comes back to stakes, right?
Accountability.
The accountability and responsibility. The stakes in that DJ business are you could ruin somebody's wedding. And I actually had friends whose wedding was ruined due to an unfortunate slip and fall incident during a bachelor party the night before a wedding. This is why you never do a bachelor party the night before a wedding. But
Damn, that is bad
dude
planning.
had a big cut all over his face in all the wedding pictures. And that wedding, that caused enough discord. And they went through the wedding and all that. That caused enough discord in the marriage that marriage was not together after 6 months.
Wow.
So, one, don't have a bachelor party the night before the wedding.
Two, Cotton Eye Joe.
It's about, right, you don't want to ruin anybody's wedding. And the way your company handled that was you very much instilled in that and all of your DJs. We don't ruin people's weddings. You are gonna make choices when you are on the stage DJing. You need to be cognizant of, and we all do this every day. We interact with people every day, and the choices we make and the things we say have impacts on other people. You are going to have an impact on not just this wedding, not just the guests, not just the music, not just how much a good time people have. You're going to have an impact on this marriage going forward of what is supposed to be the best day of these two people's lives. So you have that responsibility. Don't let that paralyze you, but keep that in mind. Now, I imagine in the DJ business, when someone's an experienced DJ, they give you a lot of leeway. When someone's a new DJ in the company, they say, you have a responsibility to not ruin this wedding. You stick with the playlist we gave you.
Exactly.
No Cotton Eye Joe.
No Cotton Eye Joe.
I came from the other side of the wedding industry, as the planner of a couple. I couldn't do more than like 10. And I was the bartender, so I was responsible for getting everybody to enjoy the music that DJs would be playing.
Well, now, the quick aside here, because the music playlist is always one of the most critical things. There's people that absolutely want Cotton Eye Joe. And as painful as it might be to play, like they've requested it because it's a memory that they're tapping into. And this is the difference between club DJs and wedding DJs. Because club DJs will be like, dude, I hate playing Cupid Shuffle. I'm like, you know how much money people have paid me to play the Cupid Shuffle? A lot.
I'm looking at you like, what the fuck's
And it's like they want that because they believe that's going to be what gets people going. Sometimes they leave it up to us, but sometimes they're like, I want to hear this. Like, and there's been times where I've never even heard the song. I would never play it at a wedding, but like it's a memory from when their aunt used to get them all singing together as like kids. And she's passed away, and like they want everybody out there, and it's like this whole moment. And I'm just like, I'm adding that song to my playlist because now it's like part of my whole life.
Sure, the customer asks for a song, you're going to play the song.
Exactly,
right? It's when drunk uncle comes up and is like, Cotton, I'll give you $50 to play Cotton Eye Joe.
Exactly. Yes. And
Drunk
if you
Uncle
are the
Bob
type of person,
is my favorite person at the wedding.
PSA, last one, I promise. But if you go to somebody else's wedding and you request to play a song, and the DJ politely tells you that they have a playlist to stick to, leave them alone, or her alone,
or pay them $1,000.
or you can pay them $1,000, and they're still not going to do it.
That's entrepreneurship.
You got to pay to play, baby.
Right.
See, I'm telling you, street leadership works. Money talks. You know?
But no, so I love what you said. To me, and again, the way I explained, when I talk about fear, it's not that I put that fear onto somebody else. I ask somebody, like, what is the worst that can go wrong? And let them paint the picture of the fiery car going off the bridge. Because if I just tell them that you'll ruin somebody's wedding, like, it doesn't stick. But it's like, if they're like, oh, well, this could happen and that could happen. And it's like, all right, cool. You now have the tools to do a great job. And you have just enough, like, fear in your back pocket that makes sure that you, like,
well, hopefully your team is good too, because on the logistics side, we check AVs, we check everything on the production side, every single speaker. We run it the night before, we run the stage, we make sure nobody trips, we make sure the height of the stairs for them to step up where the cake's going to be. So all of that kind of leaned on me, and then that's why sometimes I'm still a type A type of person, just because that's what it takes. It's like every single step has to be accounted for, from where they walk in to where the carpet is to where the cord is, where we lay the tape, where we lay the outlets. So things like that comes back to leadership. People don't see these things that kind of lay on the behind the scenes people, not just the person that's like, obviously on the day of, I get to be the drunk one behind the bar, being drunk with not being drunk, but being around drunk people, because it keeps an orderly fashion of like the bottlenecks and the satellite bars and where people are flowing in and out of. And so they don't trip on each other, trip on all the cords. That's going to take you out and pull the entire 2 speaker systems. You know what I mean? So things like this, like people don't. So I think you would be a great wedding planner. Like if we got into this, sorry, we're not starting another business, especially not Dave.
My first 5 didn't go great.
Yeah, right.
I've never been married. It's
so it's interesting because all of that's leadership in events. Then you've got leadership in the corporate setting or just in business in general. That's a lot more consistent. There's a lot more complacency that can happen. There's a lot of communication that cannot go down the way that it needs to. So in that world, what are a few things where people can start to kind of understand, do they have good leadership and communication? And then what actions can they take to move that needle? Yeah,
and it's all part and parcel. Events is a great example, right? If you've been to an event and it went really smoothly and you had a great time, chances are there was some great leadership behind that, both at the top level and being practiced all the way down with the big picture of we're going to make this a great event for everybody, right? In the corporate world, the biggest thing that you can do is develop those future leaders, right? Make sure they understand this idea of stakes. Make sure they understand their role in things. We always want to be developing future leaders. That's our most important job as leaders. Getting the job done is for the folks on the front line. We want to empower them. We want to enable them. We want to make sure they have all the tools they do, but that's still not enough because someday we're all going to move on, whether that's our own choice, which we hope it is, or for whatever reason we move on, right? And one of the things that drives me crazy working in the corporate world is someone moves on, they get a better job offer somewhere else, or they get promoted, and the thing that drives me really crazy is like the best candidate for a job to get promoted internally can't get that job that they really should and they deserve to get and are going to be great at, because if they take that person out of that team falls apart, right? So
the key man,
right? You never want to be the key man. You want to have a team where if anybody gets pulled out for some reason, hopefully for a good opportunity, not because of some tragedy, that the team looks at each other and goes, we know how to do this. We know how to function without the boss. We know how to function. This is why a lot of entrepreneurs and corporate executives can't ever really go on vacation, right? They go on vacation and they're tied to their laptop or they're tied to their phone because they're always getting calls because A, they haven't delegated properly to anybody on the team. And B, the team isn't confident making decisions without them. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to develop leaders that are confident making decisions on their own. They know the box they need to live in. And there's a whole longer conversation about delegation. But what we're doing is we're starting people with a real small box, right? That could be because they're new and they don't know as much, or because the stakes are high. The example I always like to use is there's the nuclear missile mission, the nuclear attack mission in the military, right? When people go in, even though they're highly capable, highly trained, very knowledgeable, very educated, when those missile guys and girls go into that missile silo, there is a procedure for everything. They follow every procedure to the letter. They get tested on it actually every month, I think it is. I think it's still every month. They have to go take a test on all their procedures.
What are the stakes there? I mean, that's kind of important.
It's only the survival of the world, right?
Exactly.
So
sign me up, Jason.
I don't care how, and rightly so, right? We don't care how smart you are, how you think things might be done better. When you are down in that hole, you do everything according to the book every time because the stakes are so high. The time for the conversation of how do we do things better is back out of the squadron bar talking about, I think there's a way we could do this better, or in some after action review or something, right? And then there's like what most of us are involved in every day, and especially in the entrepreneurial community and the tech community, where we want to encourage innovation, right? We want people to try things. And so what we do is we give people a very small box to try things in. And then when they try something and it works, we talk with them about, how did that go? Why do you think that worked? And why do you think this is a good thing for our big picture? Right? Because sometimes something works and it's not a good thing for the big picture, right? Good idea doesn't fit our strategy, but you learn something about this, right? You're a little more confident that you can get something done. And then we expand that box, right? Maybe it doesn't go so well, right? What did you learn from this? Okay, I learned I need to not run the power through the main area that the servers are coming in to serve dinner, right? Okay, we learn something from that. And we gradually grow that box. We give people more responsibility. We give them more authority to achieve that responsibility as they go. And we primarily decide that on how much initiative they are showing.
Yeah. It's funny because I've got those two different extremes, right? You've got thermo-global nuclear war, and you've got a wedding. And it's like you push the wrong button at the wedding, you accidentally play Cotton Eye Joe.
On purpose. For $1,000.
And
It's a short
and
song.
you immediately
It'll be
switch
okay.
back to Pitbull. But then you push the wrong button in that bunker, and like the world is over. Like so yeah, definitely a spectrum. Here's what's I'm really curious about because this is really setting some pillars to not only what you are capable of and what we've worked on and things like Vets in Tech. Why is it that people are so excited at the idea of hiring veterans within their organizations because of their leadership? And then also, why do you think some people look at it the wrong way?
I think people get excited. So I haven't seen this survey come out in a while, but traditionally, as long as I've been involved with the military, they do a survey on public institutions in America. And the military is by far the most trusted public institution in America because people understand what goes into basic training. They understand that people are out there putting their lives on the line, that they are good teammates. They show initiative when they need to show initiative. They show discipline and focus when they need to show discipline and focus. The military is really great at doing all of that. So they see the uniforms and they see this is a really great person and they're a hero, right? A lot of people view military folks as American heroes. I'd love to have some heroes working for me. Yeah. And that comes with heroics. But when you bring a hero in, you bring a hero in. When you bring a military person in and the team's not gelling together, the team can't count on each other, you can bet that military person is going to start taking steps to get that team to count on each other, right? Yeah. Like one of my biggest pet peeves is being on time, right? And there are times to be on time, and there are times that it's okay to be a few minutes late. And then there are times it's never okay to be like 4 hours late, right? Yeah. That's why I'm not dating that girl anymore.
Yeah. Weddings, you should never be 4 hours late to a wedding.
To your own.
Asian time. Oh, shit. I've been trained on Asian time this whole time. I don't know. Is there something else you want to unpack, Jason?
I don't know. Welcome to Wedding Chat.
Yeah, my bad. I know I said I was going to stop.
PSA, Dave will do at least one more PSA before the end of the podcast.
At least he's not crying today.
No, what you're bringing in when you bring in a veteran, you are bringing in someone who will see deficiencies and will take the initiative to change them, right? And if you tell them this is the box you live in, don't make changes on this, they will come to you before they do that. But if they see the team's not coming in on time, and being on time is important, right? You know, most of us work in jobs where it's like you're 5 minutes late, it's okay, right? But some folks work in jobs where I'm handing a thing to you, and if you're not there to catch it, the whole thing falls apart, right? So veterans will come in and they will, not because they want to make jobs like the military, because they understand the importance of teamwork. They understand the importance of being with each other. They understand the importance of attention to detail. They understand the importance of meeting the big picture, right? One of the biggest things a veteran will ask when they come into a company to work is, well, I thought we were doing that. Why do we do this? Because it doesn't help that, right? And so I think a lot of employers aren't really prepared when they get a veteran in that these are the things that come with it. And they are, in my opinion, I mean, I'm biased as a veteran, but these are net positive things. But a lot of corporate leaders, a lot of civilian leaders aren't ready for the pure motivations that come behind what to them looks like insubordinate behavior.
You nailed it.
Love that.
Like, copy it, paste it, repurpose that 400 times. You nailed it. They get excited about the heroics, but they don't understand that it comes with conditioning. And like a lot of times if we see something, we say something, because we do come from, not all veterans come from combat, not all veterans have been, but most of us do come from a conditioned atmosphere where lives are at stake. at the end of the somebody like even the paperwork guy back at the office can be conditioned to believe that the forms that he fills out will result in lives like lives are at stake. So there is a lot at stake. And like a lot of times it's like, wait, like you said, why does the mission say this? Why are we doing this if it doesn't align? And that can be viewed as conflict. And conflict in the workplace, especially in the corporate workplace, opens up a whole can of worms and challenges and all those.
Something on the humanity side with conflicts and being structured, and you call it conditionings, we just call it, I call it structure, right? Like just having a certain set of orders so that you follow so that we can communicate clearly. But I think on the personal side, sometimes a lot of those structures, you can easily identify those people that has either been through combat or through military training, is that there's a certain set of chaos that they're addicted to, so they act, I wouldn't say with urgency, but sometimes on impulse, because there's a certain mechanism in like the nervous system and how they're able to regulate emotions that does not allow them to connect with other people on a one-on-one, setting. So yes, like I think they do make great leaders in terms of structural support, but sometimes it kind of bleeds into the ability to just have emotional intelligence to carry a conversation, to lead with compassion, with empathy. Not that they're soft. I think having vulnerability and having the ability to communicate and regulate your own emotions speaks volume to you being a good leader. Because I think that's the two boxes that I can kind of see. And I've worked with, business owners that are heavily involved in their businesses, both in the entrepreneur space and both in the community. And that's literally like, it's hard to find someone that's integrated and whole with the soft side, the vulnerability side, and then the structure of the execution side. Can you speak to that?
No, I agree. I think that is a real challenge for veterans, and that is something that is not on the employer, that they're getting something they didn't sign up for. I know when you came in and when you came out, mental health was not something we talked about. If you had to get referred to mental health, you were on your way out the door. I think it's better now, but I left in 2015, and it was still, if we're talking about mental health, you're on your way out the door. So hopefully it's better now, but we don't give people a lot of tools for dealing with emotional intelligence in the military. And now the best leaders I had were the ones who were emotionally intelligent. Whether they came by that naturally, whether that was part of their upbringing, whether it was just something they acquired, they were the best ones. They were by far the best leaders who know how to balance that. Well, that is difficult for us coming out. One of the other challenges there is, when you're in a rifle platoon, everybody knows the big picture. Everybody knows how to take apart their rifle. Everybody knows how to put together their rifle. Like in the military, when you are part of that cohesive a team, whether it's a rifleman platoon, whether it's a flight test squadron in the Air Force, we all know what each other are doing because we've all been trained the same way. We've all been taught the same way. We all are doing the same job every day. And so we have that innate communication by doing. That's something I think you are right. I think veterans need to understand when I take the uniform off and I get outside the military environment, and now I'm working for that events company or a tech company or whatever it is, people don't know my intentions, and they don't know my purpose just from my actions, just by observing my actions and me interacting with you. And that's something that we could probably do better as veterans coming out, is to talk with each other about, make sure you're communicating what you're really doing here, right? I'm gonna move this. I'm just gonna walk over here and move this over here, right? Because if we're in a military unit and I see something's going to fall over you, I'm going to get up, I'm going to walk over, I'm going to move it over there. I'm going to move your light, right? Yeah. Well, now the light's not where I want it to be. Yeah, but it's also not falling on you right now, right? So, really bad example came up with on the fly, but that's something we can do. Say, hey, I'm doing this because. Yeah. Right? I'm doing this because I'm trying to help you. The other thing we can often do is we often come in and start helping, and we don't often ask, how can I help?
Yeah.
We
guilty.
Same. We see a problem, we see a solution, and we're so conditioned, either see something, say something, or see something, go fix it, right? Don't sit on that. Like if you see a problem, go fix it. That we just start doing stuff, and if we're new, or we're not paying attention to the big picture, because we should be too, as veterans, we may be breaking something apart of the big picture by doing something tactically that we are responding. I don't know if I'd use the word impulse, but we are seeing a problem and we're solving a problem, right? And if we don't have that sense of how things fit into the big picture, we may be creating a bigger problem.
Well, and it's interesting because so that's the challenge that we see across corporate, right? Is there's people that say we want heroes, but they may not be prepared for what that understands. Like when it comes to you and the clients that you work with and the organizations that you generally can be very helpful, would it make more sense, or I guess if you can wave the magic wand, would you think that companies that already have some sort of an existing veteran like inclusion program or understanding of what that is would be a better fit for kind of the work and consulting that you do, or would it be more the companies that, like I've used this poll before where like in a room full of 100 business owners, hey, who hires veterans? Of course they all raise their hands. No one's going to say we do not hire veterans, right? But like, do people actually have a plan and a program for what that means? So would it be more like valuable for organizations that know the power and they've learned something from this that would be more open to starting some sort of a veteran leadership or inclusion program within their organization?
I think there are two answers to that question. If you have a veteran inclusion program, a really well-defined veteran inclusion program, and you're preparing these veterans for what they're going to come into, that's great, but that's half the equation, right? Prepare the non-veterans for what's coming in as well, right? And this is the equivalent of the folding of the socks, right?
Yeah.
What is everybody getting themselves into? What are we all getting ready to do? What are the big pictures? How do we all work together as a team, right? And that will evolve over time. So for companies that don't have any kind of veteran inclusion program, I mean, that's great to have, but you also would be well served by doing what's the equivalent of how we fold our socks.
Yeah.
Right.
Get to that core standard.
Right.
And it's not folding socks, it could be
it could be whatever it is,
the
right?
SOPs or the process.
Running power cables, right?
Yeah.
Right. We always run power cables so that they're not in main walkways. Yeah. Like you and I run power cables all the time where we go, well, this isn't our favorite thing to do, but it's the only thing we can do, right?
Well, yeah, but it's one of those things where
this
sounds so funny, and power cable people know this, right? You either loop them, or a lot of people like that come and try to help will start to wind it around their elbow, and it's just something like that causes a kink in the cords, and over time it will create a trip hazard. I know it sounds so minimal.
Yep. Velcro tapes are my favorite.
There you go.
Yep. Color codes, depending on which wire.
Right. You might get a short in the cable.
Exactly.
And that's an expense, but who cares? Cables aren't that expensive. You replace cables for wear and tear anyway. But more importantly, when you get into that situation where you've been asked to do some kind of unique setup and you really need that power cable, now maybe you don't have that power cable because it's shorted out, right?
Exactly. Now, with that being said, that's a great example, but to the point of your work, because now that I really hope there's people that are hearing this that now I never looked at it that way, right? That's always, open to. You've been spending a lot of time over the last year, because we work together in a lot of circles and a lot of projects like the book club, mastermind stuff that we do. Like, you've been working on a course, and you've been working on a way to communicate different aspects of that. So tell us a little bit about the course and like what are the real roots of what led you to do that specifically, and like who's it for, who's it not for, like what does that really look like?
Yeah, so we have a digital course. It's called the Be the Boss You Always Wish You Had program. It's 16 modules. You get a module a week. There's short videos there. I try to keep them between 5 and 10 minutes. I think there's one that might be 12 or 13 minutes. But this is for anyone who is a manager, anyone who wants to be a manager. This is even kind of a recaging on the fundamentals for folks who have been managers or leaders for a long time. And it really is the how do we fold our socks of things. And not just the how do we fold our socks, the why do we have a way we fold our socks, right? The very first module we talk about what it means to be a leader.
Yeah.
That's where we start.
Yeah.
We don't start with communication skills. We don't start with negotiation skills. We don't start with delegating. The whole first 4 modules are very much in the vein of what does it mean to be a leader? Why were we chosen as leaders? How did we become leaders? Why is all of that important? Once we have that internalized, then we can start talking about, let's talk about how you'd use some negotiation skills to achieve the why you became a leader, the how you became a leader, the what does it mean to be a leader. So it's, we talk about those things. What does it mean to be a leader? Why were you chosen to be a leader, right? Many people were chosen to be a leader because the last guy or girl left and they'd been there the next longest, right? Yeah. But I don't want you to think of yourself that way, even if that's why you were chosen. Yeah. In the military, in an ideal situation, we choose leaders. When you get a promotion order in the military, when you get promoted to the next rank, you get an order, and as an officer, it's signed by the President of the United States. I mean, not like with an auto pen. But that's where your authority comes from the Constitution through the President of the United States, chain of command, et cetera. But the President of the United States has the authority to appoint officers in the military. All right, that's just a fun constitutional fact. Welcome to Constitution Chat.
Don't tell the president that he has that authority right now.
I think he knows. I think he knows.
That's a different tangent that we don't want you to go down right now.
That's a different podcast.
Dave's been looking for ways to get canceled, man.
Yeah,
clearly. Right. Where was I? Yes, promotion order. So in your promotion order, and it's kind of an overlooked thing, but as I looked back on it, I found this to be really important. You know, when you get promoted, you take the oath of office and all that, you do a ceremony. And they read the promotion order. And in the promotion order, it says, Jason LeDuc, having been found by the President of the United States to have special trust and confidence, is now appointed to a higher grade. Because of the capacity to, I'm butchering it, but because you have a capacity to serve in a higher grade, because we have special trust and confidence in you. And we talk about what it means to be a leader. Whether you were promoted to be the leader because the last guy or girl was gone and you were the one who's next there the longest, they still have special trust and confidence in you to do the job. They still see that you can do more than what you were doing. Yeah. And that's really kind of the core of what we're talking about in the course. And we're trying to get people to think about, what do I do now? What more can I do? And how can I prepare myself to serve in a higher capacity? And you start that with yourself. And then when you've got people on your team, how am I preparing them to serve in a higher capacity as well? How am I developing special trust and confidence with them so when I have to go to jury duty for 4 weeks and get sequestered on a murder trial, how do I know that they're all ready to handle that? Yeah. And so we do that by building trust and confidence in each other, and we do that by preparing people to serve in a higher capacity than they're serving in now. And that's what the whole course is about. All 16 modules are really about that. The first 4 are really focused on those thought pieces, and then we get into all the nuts and bolts skills that help you do that.
I love that, because every entrepreneur that started their own business is because they probably once had a boss that they can't stand or never want to become like ever again. So
all 3 of us are entrepreneurs. We know what it's like to get caught up in the day-to-day. Yeah. We know what it's like to get caught up in, we got to deliver this today. We're behind. We got to go get that new sale, that new contract, or whatever it is. And when you are so caught up in the day-to-day, it's really easy to forget, how am I developing my team? Right? And so that's why this course is so important to me, is even for entrepreneurs, even if you're not working in corporate, this is a great course, because it starts getting you internalize this thinking of how am I preparing myself to serve in a higher capacity? How am I building trust and confidence with people? How am I preparing people to serve in a higher capacity? The best time to start developing your leadership as an entrepreneur is when it's just you. Before you make that first hire, so you can have these conversations, whether it's a veteran or not. You can have these conversations with that person when you first sit them down and say, let's talk about hiring you.
Yeah, no, I love what you brought up about how you manage your time and energy is how I look at the calendar. So something I've been working on is just looking at how am I spending it? Is it effective? Because I am responsible for my partners and the rest of my team. And I just can't be fixated on my day-to-day, because that means that anytime I'm bleeding attention, I take focus away from building something that I've already previously committed to. You know, I think as entrepreneurs, personally, people feel that they're going around reacting to life and adding more and more and more because they feel like they're more valuable. But I think for me, in the last month and a half, 6 weeks, I've been taking stuff off of my plate so that I can contribute even like on a higher capacity to the people that matters most to me, which is the people that I've committed to, which is my partners, you know? So how are you going to lead a team if you're like, you know,
strip it down,
splattered.
Strip it down. Focus on the mission. Focus on how you're setting the people up for success to achieve the mission. If you do that, you actually will have some time in your day to go spend some time with your family, to go take your family on that vacation, to go get a little downtime for yourself, to read that book or to meditate or whatever. But if you're always chasing and you're not thinking about how you're building that team around you, you're always going to be chasing.
The think tank, you know, on the weekends is where clarity and focus comes in.
Well, that rolls into kind of the challenges that we have in the community and the ecosystem, is that we have a lot of different people that see different end goals and are all working towards the different variations of that they see. Sometimes there isn't that united vision or front. And I will say this, because I had this conversation with somebody the other day. It's like when you talk about entrepreneurs as leaders, like there's two, you can go into the vocabulary of the different stages of an entrepreneur. Some people don't realize you have solopreneur, entrepreneur, CEO, business owner. And like a lot of times it happens. I did it when I first started my first LLC. You go get a business card that says CEO. And it's like, real CEOs, a true CEO under a certain matrix is somebody that has not just made the first critical hire, they've made 3 or 4 critical hires that now independently hire their own teams. So leadership from that level is very different than leadership at a solopreneur level. Yes, they are leading themselves, but like it does change as they get. I watch a lot of, I'm going to be very specific when I say this, solopreneurs who read all of these leadership books and they have no people on their team, nor will they have anyone on their team. And they wonder why they're not like growing their business, because they're reading like it's like
they don't have a business.
Exactly.
They have 18 different jobs that does not pay them.
I think that's the more fundamental problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because I don't want to discourage anyone from reading from reading leadership books or taking an online leadership course.
Exactly.
I don't want to discourage anyone from that, but apply the principles in the way that makes sense.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And why did you become an entrepreneur? Right. Let's change the question a little bit from why did you be. What does it mean to be a leader to what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? Right.
Yep.
I'm serving the public in some way. Yes, I'm getting money, but I'm serving the public in some way. Yeah. And whatever it is you do to serve the public, whether you're thinking of it as solving a problem or providing a solution, however you think of that, those are both great ways to think about it. I solve a problem for people. I provide a solution to solve that problem. That's your strategy. And if you want to think and act like a CEO, then everything you do, we're back to internal leadership, right? We're back to leading ourselves. Everything you do when it comes to the business needs to serve that purpose, achieve that mission of I solve this problem for people with this solution.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you are doing stuff that doesn't do that, that one of my big pet peeves is the entrepreneur who talks about hustling and grinding so hard because they are spending 2 or 3 hours every night adjusting the margins and adjusting the colors on their logo, right? Now, you need a logo. I'm not saying you don't need a logo. I'm not saying you don't need marketing. I'm not saying you don't need branding. You need all that as an entrepreneur. But is adjusting the colors on this over and over again for hours, is that serving the big picture strategy of I solve this problem with this solution? Yeah. For your business, maybe that color on that logo is really important. I'm not going to judge that, but that's the question I have for you, right? Yeah. The events I attend, am I meeting my target audience? Am I actually able to ask 100 people if this is a solution they'd be interested? Do they have this problem?
Yeah.
And is this a solution they'd be interested in? Right? Am I attending events where I am able to do that?
Yeah.
Or am I attending events where that I'm not even meeting my target market? Right.
That I call creative avoidance and creative distraction, because I think people live in that box for so long that they get familiarized with keeping busy just to keep busy, and they're chasing their tail. They're going in circles, and it's not really going anywhere, you know?
It's the dark side of hustle. It's hustle porn, right? I post Instagram pictures. I'm going to post Instagram pictures from an event later today, so don't judge me. But
oh, I'm judging you right now. I'm going to text roast
Do
you.
what I say, not what I do.
But I'm very careful about the events I go to. So.
We talked about this,
but that's hustle porn, right? I go to 4 networking events a day, and I post pictures at me meeting people from all of them. Well, did you get any feedback on your solution?
Yeah.
Did you are any of these people your target market? Are any of them good strategic partners who can give them real good referrals to you? If the answer to those is yes, great. Yeah. But if the answer to that is no, that may be an event you want to scratch off your calendar in the future.
All these videos are going through my head because I'm like, oh, we could create this video which is like you're sitting there going through the whole problem solution matrix with a potential client, and they're like, absolutely, this is great. Here's my credit card. And you're like, oh, did you know I have a logo? Or it's like, or if the thing was
Dave.
like, or the thing is like, hey, I'm ready to give you my credit card. I just need to go to your website and make sure you have a logo first. And it's like, that never happens.
Well,
but some people stay really focused on that. I can't start until my websites or whatever. And it's like, it does happen.
Definitely money is a byproduct of the value you're able to create.
Yeah.
That's it in 5 words. And most people don't have a value. They have a speech around the things that they might be able to do to see if there's a test market. I'm like, you shouldn't be out beta testing yourself and just selling a bunch of stuff you don't have the value to offer. And so I think that's where most people get stuck when, you know, they feel frustrated and they're like, well, I'm not getting any. And
that's a perfect example. I can't take your money because I haven't built the website, because I haven't decided on my logo yet.
Because I haven't sat down and put in the work.
And I haven't sat down and got signed up for and it's easier than ever to get signed up for a payment processor, right?
Yep.
Or, I mean, you
can even do it through
advice
Calendly.
to any entrepreneur right out there right now, if someone says to you, I want to give you my credit card right now, show them your Cash App.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't have a Cash App, go get well, just whatever your payment method of choice is.
Yeah.
If someone wants to give you money to do something, let them. And unless you have a real moral problem with it, or you don't think you're going to be able to do it, right? I mean, this is a mistake I made very early on in my business of, that's not really what I do.
Yeah.
And I learned very quickly, if people are willing to pay you for something that's kind of what you do, right? This may be a new revenue stream for you. Don't get real moral, and idealistic about your business, right? If you're helping people solve the problem you want to help them solve, and they just are asking you to do it in a different way, we're still solving the problem, right?
Yeah. It boils down to that. Are you focused on the solution, which is the thing that you have, or are you focused on the problem, which is what people need? And it's like a lot of times people don't go back to that. It's like you can't have both. But like if you're only focused on the solution, well, that's not ready yet, or whatever, like it'll hold people back. And it's like, well, I'm ready to pay you right now. Like you've already done this thing. Like it's kind of what you do. And you're like, yeah, but
there are some entrepreneurs that I love the jumping out of the plane method, like build parachute on the way down.
Yeah.
Fantastic, unless you actually can't execute on the thing that you say you're going to do.
Exactly.
This is my mistake, cost of learning, hiring people that says they can do all the things that's supposed to fix my pain, and then when it comes down to it, I pay them. And that's, I'm paying for their tuition to figure out how to build the business as they go.
What's the saying?
That's my fault.
Charge it to the game. Swipe the card, charge it to the game.
Because I've been on, that end of the person paying these people too, and I'm like, you can't even do the thing you offered me.
Well, and there are solutions to everything, right? If someone's offering you money to do something you're not sure you can do, negotiate with them and say, look, I'll take half now because I need some money to get started. You don't have to pay me the second half until I've got it done to the degree to the satisfaction degree that we both said we would get it done, right? And if I don't get it done, I'll give you your money back, right? There's all ways to handle this stuff, right? But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of folks out there who will just say yes to everything as well. Like, you don't want to be the person who says yes to everything with no idea how you're going to do it, and then say, well, I put in 70 hours on this. I'm keeping your money anyway, even though I didn't deliver anything.
And then burn your reputation to the ground.
No, and that's, again, charge it to the game, right? How much is your reputation worth to you?
Yeah. Well, this is great insight, especially onto yet another incredible character in the whole valley of Las Vegas and the changes and evolutions that are happening right now. So great look under the hood. Because of all that, like you're working, you're always actively growing, building, and a lot of us are doing that together, right? You're plugged into the ecosystem, Vets in Tech with Tech Alley, with Global Entrepreneurship Week, all of the things that are helping move this community forward. So as it comes to that part of what we're talking about, and this is going to create a lot more series and like opportunities for people to come back. But what do you see as the biggest challenge now in the ecosystem of Las Vegas as we continue to grow now into a new year, into a new administration, not politically, but more like locally with new mayor and thing like that. What challenges do you see in the near future, and then what do you see as the big opportunities as well?
I think the biggest challenge I see, and it's the same challenge that I've seen since I moved back here. You know, when I was here the first time, I was in the Air Force and mostly focused on that. Opened my aperture much more since I've gotten here in 2015 to be more tuned into the community here. The biggest challenge we've got is we all do kind of have the same goal, right? Especially in the entrepreneur community. We want more entrepreneurs, we want more startups, we want more businesses, we want more of that. And there's a lot of players in the game who want that. We all kind of have the same goal. The challenge is we have a lot of folks who are all doing their own thing. And and it's hard to do your own thing. I'm not saying it's not hard and you shouldn't be focused on it. But remember the movie School of Rock? In the movie School of Rock, the main character kid is like noodling around on a guitar and he's messing around with one of the other kids. They've got a sheet of paper. And Jack Black comes over and he says, "What are you guys doing?" And he's like, "Nothing." And he says, "No, you're doing something. What are you doing?" And he says, "Oh, we're playing this dumb song I wrote." And Jack Black grabs a sheet of paper. He says, "You wrote a song?" He's like, "Yeah." He looks at it, he says, "We got to play this." The kid says, "You want to play my song?" And Jack Black says to the kid, "We're in a band. That's what we do. We play each other's songs." And that's what we need to do if we want this community to be successful, is we need to show up to each other's events. We need to play each other's songs. There's plenty of room to compete, right? We can compete with each other if we're in the same space, the same industry, but there's also plenty of room for us to play each other's songs, and especially for the institutional folks who are focused on their own institution and what they're going to get out of a new ecosystem in this city. That's really where it's important is we show up to each other's events. We support each other. We play each other's songs. And that's what I think the biggest challenge is, and that's what I'd like to see. And we're starting to see some of that with things like Tech Alley, right? We're starting to see people come around centrally around one thing and build relationships and get to know each other and start to say, how can I help? Instead of saying that's a competitor.
Boom. Is that traumatizing?
School of Rock.
No, that's you're 100% right, and we have made leaps and bounds in the last post-COVID. I think has really post-pandemic, whatever you call it. It has all really changed what people are now open to. And change does take time. Like, I have to remind myself that often. You have to remind me of that often.
And to be fair, you have to remind me of that often. So.
Right. Yeah,
and you have to remind me of that often.
Yeah, right.
I do via text.
Yeah, via text.
Through a meme.
Yeah, through a meme. Yeah. Well,
it's my love language.
And now I think we do have some great things on the horizon. I do see the responsibility for us as veterans to lead those things and lead those in a very way in a way that is conducive to the way people need to be led. Like we have to lead with a velvet hammer, not an iron fist.
We have to set the example.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It would everything I just said about playing each other's songs would mean nothing if I didn't show up to events.
Yeah.
If I didn't show up for people, if I didn't say, how can I support you? How can I, or say, like we met a couple months ago, and I immediately said, we're doing this thing, this angel investing group. You sound like a person who should be at this, right? And I could let you find that on your own, right?
Yeah.
But
and then I show up, and then
we have to set the example. It's not going to happen if we talk about it but don't do it. It's not going to happen.
Yep. As we allude to some of those things, which we'll dive deeper in on the next segment, we have the opportunity of Freedom Week coming up, for Global Entrepreneurship Week coming up, for programs and projects with Vets in Tech. We have some stuff that we didn't even really dive into. Like we've got some great leaders that want to host workshops and things out here from other communities where they've reached out to us to help lead those initiatives. So it's all coming. It's all moving forward, but in the meantime, we'll continue to show up to other people's events, play other people's songs, and you should too.
That's gonna be like the new buzz phase of today, playing each other's songs.
God, finally, I've been trying this for like 3 years.
Oh my God!
I've heard you say it, and it just stuck.
This is what I told him. Like sometimes when you talk about leadership and he's so serious and like the whole vets thing, and then once you lighten up, I'm like, I can get jiggy with this guy, and that's about human connection,
That's why I showed up drunk.
Yeah, that's right.
Not really.
Not really.
Let me smell your breath. What's going to blow into this?
Right. So where can people find you? Where can people get connected and start that conversation to learn more about what you're doing, learn about your podcast, all of those things? Where do people go?
Okay, LeDucLeadership.com is the website. You can kind of get to everything from there. LeDuc Leadership on all the social medias. I should say Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I still have a TikTok. I haven't posted much on it lately. But those are the social medias I primarily spend time on.
Meerkat. I'm just
Remember
kidding.
Meerkat?
Clubhouse.
Meerkat
Clubhouse.
I was on Meerkat a lot in the beginning.
Sorry.
I was not expecting that diversion.
Me neither.
And check out the Leaders Mindset podcast. Basically, look for Jason LeDuc Leadership Consultants on YouTube, and you'll find that. We do an interview every week, and I'm trying to get to where I do a short educational video on what we call in the military we have this term called tactics, techniques, and procedures. And so it's short little, mostly technique kind of stuff, and you'll have to watch the video about tactics, techniques, and procedures if you want to know the difference. But mostly techniques, but we'll get into some tactics. We'll get into some procedures as well. I like people to figure out their own procedures, though. So so we do that. And then, one of the things I'm most proud of is the live streaming from Tech Alley.
Yeah.
We have really told a lot of stories of folks at Tech Alley who we probably, A, would not have known about, and B, would not have gotten to tell their stories in a podcast kind of format without being there at Tech Alley every month doing that podcast. And I'm really proud of that you are part of as well, quite frequently. I'm really proud of what that if I'm being 100% honest, that started as me. I want to get more opportunities to create content, and it has grown into an incredible opportunity to tell the story of the Las Vegas entrepreneur ecosystem.
Yeah. And it's not just exclusive, or it's not just open to people that are at Tech Alley that day. It's like we had people last month that actually came just to talk about other events that they have going on in the community. So we're very inclusive. We want to make sure that people know that they can get that out, and that's again part of our responsibility as ecosystem builders, which is definitely
we have to set the example, right? If you see something is missing, and you have the ability and the authority to go do it, go do it.
See something, say something.
what's the word? You have our blessing.
Yeah, yeah. You have our blessing.
I don't know about this wedding thing.
Yeah.
See, this is all your fault.
Yeah, if anyone tells you not to do it, just tell them we said it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you need permission, you have our permission slip.
Make
And
this
have
a-
your
make this a
lawyers
you-
talk to Jason
Yeah, right?
personally.
Yeah.
Make this a YouTube short people can
Yeah,
put on
right.
their phones, and
There it is.
we said it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. You have permission. Well, guys, that's it for us today. Thank you for tuning in. Please slide into our DMs, Dave, I, or Jason's. You can find us all over social media. If there's any way we can help you with your business or in life, need some friends to hang out with, what events we're connected to, please feel free. Dave, any last famous last words besides Cotton Eye Joe? I could see it on the tip of your mind, man.
Right. There it is. Cotton Eye
And
Joe.
tune in to the next time for Dave Berlin's intervention. And we're out.
The idea of Pursue Vegas was to really highlight the local people that really make Vegas Vegas.
I love that aspect of how these visionaries are actually bringing people together.
When we hit record, our responsibility is to connect the people of our city so we can show the world who we really are.